What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and today we're going to get back into the XFL. We are going to go through and we are going to preview Week 4. We're going to go through and start with Saturday's games. Why? Because Saturday comes before Sunday, and so we need to get those games done first. Like I've said before, guys, we need you to get the word out. We need to spread the word out about the XFL. You know what's going on. It's really not getting covered that much, and the XFL needs all of our support. So just be spreading it. Tell everybody about the XFL. Go ahead and do that. And also, too, remember that for this channel, you have a chance to win some XFL swag. I'm doing a contest. I'm giving away either a hat or a t-shirt from XFL.com, and you have one more day to enter. Got to go to the video down in the description, my giveaway video. You'll learn all of the details there. And you'll be, if you follow those details and do it before March 1st, you'll get entered in to possibly win, the giveaway. All right. Now, remember, too, leave me those comments down in the comment section. I will definitely try to get to those guys. And I love reading them. I love interacting with you on them. And too, you guys leave me some good ones. I'll definitely feature them in an upcoming video. All right, let's go ahead and let's get into this. Let's break it down. And let's start off with the first game on Saturday. That's a 2 o'clock game. We're going to be heading to MetLife Stadium. We're going to East Rutherford, New Jersey. Yeah, that's right. The New York Guardians play in New Jersey. But let's throw that all aside. We are having probably the hottest team right now in all of the XFL who's going to be coming in. Arguably had the biggest win last week. We've got the LA Wildcats coming in, and they're playing the New York Guardians. That game is starting, like I said, at 2. That game's going to be on ABC. That game at 2 o'clock. We've got partly cloudy weather. It's going to be 37 degrees. And we've got the Wildcats are giving up 8 points to the New York Guardians. All right, let's go ahead and let's start to get into this game. And really, we've got a tale of 2 different teams right now. Both of these teams, they're 1-2, but they're coming from totally drastic, different kind of paths to get to this 1-2. We've got a team in the New York Guardians that have just fallen apart. They had a really good, solid win with only giving up 3 points. 23 to 3 win the first week against the winless Tampa Bay Vipers. And just from then on, it has just been a free fall for them. They've lost 2 straight. And they're looking to get back into the win column. And last week was just a disaster for them. And then, when you look on the flip side, LA is just kind of switching things around. LA, the first week, they have a loss. The second week, they have another loss. And both of those weeks, it seemed to be that they kind of fell apart as kind of the game progressed. Third week came along, and that was a different story. DC came into town, and they dismantled DC. It was just a shellacking. They came away with a huge win. It was a 39-9 win against an undefeated, really good DC team. And that's where we're sitting at today. We've got really the tale of these two different 1-2 teams. And really, what's going to come out of this? Well, let's go ahead and let's break that down. Let's go ahead and let's start first with the New York team. This is a New York team that they're just all over the place right now. They did not play good football last week. They were pretty much done by halftime, if you even want to get them to halftime and say that. They were not good at all. They had 3 different quarterbacks that played, and really starting out with that position, their starting quarterback, the guy that was really the guy that they were talking up at the beginning of the season, he hasn't done well, and he is out this week. That's right, Matt McGloin is out this week, and he will not be playing. Starting in his place, it looks to be that it will be Luis Perez. Now, last week, Luis Perez, it was in junk time We have to throw that out there and say that. Luis Perez came in and he played really well. He went 4 for 5. He threw for 39 yards, and he threw a touchdown and no interceptions. He looked fairly decent for them when he came in, but by no means, he was playing. The game was already over by the time he was in there. New York had already self-destructed and fallen apart. Mama had already come in for Silberman, and it was just a mess. They were not playing good ball. They were not playing like a team. And this is a team right now that I think is on the verge of really just falling apart. And if they don't really change some things and change the trajectory really quick, their season is going to be done this week. That's at least how I feel about it. And look, I think that Luis Perez at quarterback gives them the best option this week. It looks like that he probably will be maybe going through and sharing snaps with Marquise Williams. Williams played a lot last week after Matt McGloin just had a terrible game. He came in and played, and he didn't do much better. To where when I look at this, I think that Luis Perez is their best option. Why? So Williams, I think he can be elusive. I don't think he's like, a great runner or anything like that, but I think that he can kind of move the ball with his legs a little bit more than kind of what most quarterbacks can. But he is very inconsistent with his ball and many times can get inaccurate. And we saw that a lot on Saturday. And he just didn't have a very good command of the offense when he was in there. But then again, neither did Matt McGloin. And this is one of those things to where this team really needs to find a leader at quarterback who really believes in the system that they're running and who can run the system that they're running. And right now, Matt McGloin's not running that system. A lot of it has to do with Matt McGloin's just... He's not throwing the ball well down the field. And in this offense, you're going to need to throw the ball downfield to really open things up as you get going. And that's not there. And he made a lot of mistakes, both he and Williams, to where I think Luis Perez actually could come in and give them a boost at the quarterback position. Now, we'll see what happens with this LA Wildcats defense, who just were a juggernaut last week. They were nuts. That defensive front was getting all sorts of pressure, getting on Cardell Jones, who for the most part has had a lot of time to throw the ball this season. And they had 4 interceptions on him last week. And so we'll see what happens with Luis Perez. But Luis Perez, he throws a really, really nice ball. I don't know if you remember, he was LA's... he was their Tier 1 quarterback before Josh Johnson was allocated to the team and before Josh Johnson was signed. So when you look at this is almost like a revenge type of a game. This is where he gets to play his old team type of a thing. So we'll see what happens. It's a really neat storyline to look at as we go into there. I mean, granted, he wasn't with the team for exorbitant amount of time to where it's, you really have all of that stuff. But he was traded. And so we'll see what happens with this. But, Luis Perez, I think, out of all of them, throws the best, especially the best deep ball. And he might not have the veteran experience that the other two have, but I think that he is much more accurate with his throws, and he does have some live game experience. He played extensively in the AAF last year. And so this is a guy who is not accustomed to, seeing some action on the field. And so that might actually help them out here in this situation. Now, he's got 2 really good running backs, and that if they could both stay healthy throughout the game, I think that the running game will be fine. The key thing is whether or not they can get this offense going. And they really haven't been able to really get it going all season. Now, they did a little bit the first game, but just from there on, hasn't looked good. To where if Luis Perez can come in and really put together some decent drives and really kind of push the ball down the field when he needs to, in those play action type of positions and things like that, and really catch some of the defense off guard or catch them being aggressive, I think that they could really, really benefit from that. I really like in this week. I really like Victor and I like Cook. Victor's been getting a lot better. Cook is really their starter. But Victor's really the workhorse up there. I really like he seems to always fall forward. He's a guy that gets a lot of yards after the carry. Even though Cook is a very good runner and does the same thing, I just like the way that Victor seems to find those yards. And like I said, he's a guy that seems to fall forward for a couple yards no matter what. And so, adding that combination there and adding in Luis Perez, who can get the ball out, and I think which would be good. He can push the ball possibly with McKee, get the ball to Pearson, and hit some of these guys that we haven't really been able to see a whole lot because they just haven't really – the quarterbacks haven't been able to get the ball to them. So it'll be interesting. I will say that New York is a lot healthier this week than what they've had in the past couple weeks. So, they're going to be doing better on the offensive line, to where I think that is going to bode well for them and help them. However, they're going to be probably playing against, let's see here, out of all of the teams that they've played so far, I'm looking at it, and this defensive front is a fairly decent defensive front, and the way that they played last week, if they play that way this week, the New York Guardians are going to have their hands full. So we'll see how it goes. I do know that I don't know how many of the guys are going to be out on defense. I do know that they got some guys that have been banged up a little bit. So we'll see how that all transpires. But as I look at it, that's kind of the keys for me with the offense are if either Luis Perez or Williams, one of them, can really take command of that offense. The guys can buy into the offensive scheme and run it. They ran the ball well last week, and so I'd like to see that continue on this week with them. Now let's go ahead and let's move to LA, because LA has just really been two different teams here. They've been kind of before Josh Johnson and then kind of after Josh Johnson. Once Josh Johnson kind of got in the groove of the game, ever since then, the guy has just played lights out. Played really, really well, and he's played good. Now, they lost to Dallas at home a couple of weeks ago, and that was kind of one of those things to where, if you ask me, Dallas took advantage of the mistakes that LA made, and LA did not get that chance back, to where that, I think, cost them the game. But all in all, since Josh Johnson has been back, he's played superb. He played really, really well last week, looked really good, and he's really been hitting his wide receivers, and that's really opened up their offense. Now, Elijah Hood has really kind of – he did not play at all last week, and I think that made a big difference because they've really been trying to pound with him, and that hasn't really worked out a lot. One, he hasn't been really getting the yards after contact, but the other thing is he's been really fumble prone, and especially inside. He did it twice within the 10-yard line there with Dallas, to where I don't know if he's going to be back this week. It's looking like that he's going to be back, but last week he was out. And Mr. Excitement, that's right, Mr. Excitement, Mr. Backflip, flip him all over the place, Montez Carter came in, and he just had one heck of a game. He had 11 carries for 34 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he also had 3 receptions for 41 yards and a touchdown. The guy was a difference maker. He made plays, and I was really hoping that he's going to play this week. It does not look like that's going to happen. Right now, as of Friday afternoon, he is still looking like they're still got him listed as doubtful. And so I don't think he's going to be playing, to where I think that the running back load is going to be falling on Rose. And I think that it needs to be on Larry Rose. I don't think that it needs to be on Hood. Like I said, Hood has really been where they've faltered. Now, I will say that their offense has picked up because of Josh Johnson, and so the other could be more of a byproduct, but Hood also played with Josh Johnson. So I'm looking at it in that to where if it were me, I would stay with Rhodes this game. If Carter cannot play, and then I don't know if I would bring in Hood or not. It would be a toss-up for me with that. Josh Johnson's been throwing a ball around great, and last week we got to see Trey McBride really kind of come out, have his coming out party. He played really well last week. He's just showing that just what type of a wide receiver he is. He's a very dynamic player, and it showed last week. Now, the big loss here for LA though is Nelson Spruce. Nelson Spruce has probably been, outside of Phillips there in Houston, been the best wide receiver in the league. He's been the most consistent. The guy seems to know where the end zone is and find it. He is going to be out this week. So it's really going to fall on Josh Johnson and those wide receivers and that to really fill that void and come in there. Now, when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at guys like Smallwood to come in and fill some of that gap in that with it. I'd like to see, we've got Whitfield there too, but I'd like to see them definitely. They seem to do well with hitting the running backs out of the backfield, and so maybe hitting Larry Rose, who's another dynamic guy, out of the backfield some more, get that kind of game going. But it'll be really interesting to see if they can get some of these other guys to kind of step up in Nelson Spruce's absence. And this is where kind of the things lie is how this offense, who's kind of been kind of getting things going, with missing Carter, who did well last week, and missing Nelson Spruce, who's been doing kind of their go-to guy all season, how that is going to open things up for them. Are they going to get guys that are going to step up with having those guys out this week? And so for me, as I'm looking at this, I don't necessarily think that this offense is going to falter, or that they're gonna give things up to this. The New York defense, I think, is an okay defense. They're mediocre to me. I don't think that they're great, but I don't think that they're bad. I think that they've got some real nice players on the back end. Looking at Soro and Summers, I think that those guys are really good players in the defensive backfield. But, all in all, I think that having LA having these guys out and just being, injury laden, it's really really going to see how well the other guys can kind of step up in their place and fill those voids, to where it's going to, for me, it's more on the LA offense than it is necessarily on New York's defense of stopping them. So what do I think about this game, and what do I think is going to transpire during this game? I think that this game is actually gonna be one of those to where LA, I think, is gonna find some success, and I think that New York is going to kind of fumble their way through it. But in all honesty, I don't think that LA is gonna be able to pull away, kind of, and really, I don't think New York with Luis Perez at the helm is gonna make the mistakes that they have in the past, and I don't think that LA missing their weapons, that they're going to make as many dynamic plays as what they have, to where I think both things are going to equate to a much closer game than what most people are expecting. Now, I think that LA is going to come out with the win. I think that they're going to go to 2-2. I think that New York's going to come away with a loss, and I think that it's just going to make things look worse. But actually, I think that the team is going to be healthier after this game, meaning locker room health and guys, rallying around. I think that they're going to kind of figure out who are going to be their guys going forward here, but I still think that they're going to come away with the loss. But as I'm looking at this and, picking up the spread, I've got 8 points here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to go ahead and take New York in this. Do I think that New York's going to win? No, but when you're looking at, an over-under here of like 39 points, and when the offense that really kind of let loose last week, and it was really the only week that they've let loose, and they're missing two of the big guys who were the big pieces of them having a big day. That for me is tough for them to replicate, and so I want to see that happen, and I just don't think that they're going to get that much from it, to where when you're looking at like a 39 when you're looking at an over-under of 39 points and then trying to find an 8-point spread in that is really a big spread for that type of a line. So it's almost a principal play here that you would almost just take the points when you're looking at an over-under like that. But in looking at all the pieces together, I just think that New York is going to have the players in place that believe more in this system, and they're not going to make the mistakes that they have to give LA the opportunities to really pull ahead. And I don't think LA really has their weapons to really pull ahead like they normally would, to where I think that this game is going to end up being a one-possession game. Now, it's going to be a game where LA is going to have control the whole time, but I just don't think that they can get rid of New York, to where at the end, you're kind of like, this is LA's game, and they probably run the clock out, and have a decent long drive, but I don't see them winning by more than 8 in this game. That's just my thought, so I'm going to go New York. Give me the 8 points on this game. All right, so let's go ahead and let's move to the second game of the day on Saturday, and we're going back to St. Louis, who was rocking last week with over almost 30,000 people last week. We'll see what happens this week. Now, we have two of the bigger fan bases playing in this game. So we have Seattle Dragons, who are coming to town and playing the St. Louis BattleHawks. And these two teams, we've got a 2-1 BattleHawks team against a 1-2 Seattle Dragons team. This game is going to be kicking off at 5 p.m. This game is going to be on Fox. And where are we at? We are back at the Dome at America Center, and that place is going to be rocking. Like I said, they had over 29,000 people, 29,500 some odd people last week. And it's looking that this week it's going to be another good attendance for them. How big? We just don't know yet. I'm hoping that they have more people there this week than what they did last week. And you have two of the bigger fan bases here, like I said, to where it could quite possibly grow if you've got some of those Dragon fans there in St. Louis as well. Now, you're kind of wondering, why in the world, Tyler, are you going to mention the weather? Why? Because, listen, you St. Louis fans, I'm here for you. I've got your back, because you need to know when you're traveling and when you're walking to the stadium what you need to have with you. And listen, it's going to be a nice evening again for you guys. It's going to be 51 degrees outside. It's going to be shiny. It's going to be fun. And then you're going to go in that dome and rock that place, because that's what you guys do there in St. Louis. You guys are an amazing XFL just kind of, you guys have just embraced that. And it's just been fantastic to see from all of the stuff last week. That game was a blowout, but watching the fans there, it was electric. To see that place on TV just ignite when they had that kickoff return for a touchdown last week was amazing. It was fantastic to watch, and I loved every minute of it. So I hope, if you're listening, you St. Louis fans, I hope to see just some crazy noise. I want to see the Dragons having trouble with their snaps this week like New York did last week. I want to see you guys get nuts, and I want to see you guys get crazy. All right, let's see what you guys can do. Let's go ahead and let's break down this game. This game, we're going to start with Seattle. And really, this Seattle team was a team that all in all, they're a fairly decent team, but I feel like that they've got some things that have been holding them back, and that's really where I feel. I feel like that there's this ceiling that they've had that they just can't get up and over. And, a lot of everything stems from this. It stems from the quarterback play, and we will start there with it there in Seattle. As I look at this, Brandon Silvers on paper doesn't look that bad. He was 21 for 34 last week. He had 204 yards. He had 1 interception, and really that's just kind of a lot of that had to do with them trying to get back into the game. He had 2 touchdown passes in this game. But the real key thing here with me is that this offense, I just really haven't seen a whole lot of dynamic play come from this offense. We really haven't seen guys really opening up in that with it. And it really starts with Brandon Silvers. Brandon Silvers is one of those guys to where sometimes it's interesting because you watch him and he throws some pretty balls, makes some really good decisions, and then you watch him and he makes some bad decisions and he throws some bad balls. And so this kind of, 21 for 34 is kind of indicative of that. It's not a lot of really him throwing it away. It's really just kind of making bad decisions and kind of missing things, and that he has the makings of a really good quarterback. And I don't know if he needs more playing time, if he needs some more stuff, but it just seems to me that it's really hard right now to kind of figure out what really is wrong with Brandon Silvers, just because that it's hard to find consistency in that. And he's just consistently inconsistent. And yeah, there you go. There's the line for you guys for the day with it. And so, I don't know if that stems from some other things as well, because I feel like there are a lot of things that are moving. There's always a lot of moving pieces in football, and for things to work, they have to fall together almost perfectly, and you can derail that by just having one thing off. Look at the Vipers. I really feel like the Vipers right now, if it wasn't for them not having a solid quarterback, I think that this would be a juggernaut of a team and we would be talking about them differently, but we're not. And that's just one example. Another example of this is, though, I feel like is Seattle. I feel like that they've got a few things. Not only is it Silvers, but, Mike Riley has had to spend some time away from the team. And so Jim Zorn has kind of taken up the coaching from the standpoint of calling the plays and that with it. So I don't know if there's they're being held back by the play calling just because he doesn't know really the ins and the outs of the system like Mike Riley does, to really be able to kind of open up that offense into where they've kind of maybe been kind of holding things back in the scheme, and maybe the scheme hasn't been working like Mike Riley usually works it. So there is that aspect of Jim Zorn to where that can actually get better this week too. But the third thing I want to look at too, and this is what some people said, and I just don't know if I totally agree with it. But, some people are on that they just really don't have that dynamic of players, and that they just don't have those stars, those guys, those athletes that you get them the ball and they can really make plays. And I don't necessarily know if I'm there with that kind of a thing. I think that when I look at this, I think that it does. I think it falls on a few things. I think that, if you want to take the Jim Zorn thing into effect, that's totally fine with me. So you go ahead and you add Jim Zorn, his play calling in there. And so if they fix that, I think that they'll get better. However, I think that part of it has to do with the scheme. You've got some really nice running backs. Gardner's been running well. Williams has been running well. And, Farrow runs well. But the thing with Farrow is he is definitely more of a short yardage guy, kind of, straight ahead. He doesn't have a lot of shimmy and shake with that type of stuff. However, he ran a fantastic route for a touchdown. If you can continue to try to utilize him in that pass game, he did a fantastic job. And he has also fairly decent blocking. The thing for me has really been with this is just that I'd like to see them get Williams the ball more. Trey Williams they did not draft him to be a guy that's going to be a traditional running back. They drafted him to be the X factor in the game. The guy that is going to come in, he's going to be electrifying, and he's going to change the game. Now, when I look at it, he had 8 touches with running the ball, and he had 3 receptions. And all of his numbers look respectable. But that's the thing. They look respectable. They don't look like the star. And so they really need him to step up and be the star. And I think part of it has to do with they're not really putting him in that position, getting him those one-on-one opportunities, getting him, to where he's got to beat a guy one-on-one. They're kind of putting him more in a traditional running back type of a setting. And I just don't think that he really thrives there. Now, he's a really good running back. But I'd like to see them open it up with him, get a little bit more creative with him, and I think that that will spark some things there. Listen, you've heard it before. I like Austin Pearl. I think that he's a fantastic piece here, and I think that he's their best wide receiver that they have. Now, I know that a lot of people say that their number one guys is Kenyon Reynolds, and Reynolds he is a good wide receiver. I just don't. I think you need to do some things to get him open, and if they're not happening, I don't think he's getting open. I think that they have the pieces in place to do things, but they really need to. I think that they need to focus in on Williams and trying to get him the ball more. And then it comes back down to the quarterback. They might need a more dynamic quarterback, meaning like Silvers. He is going to sit back there in the pocket. He's not going to run a lot. Now, granted, he ran 5 times for 15 yards, last game, but that's when he has to, and he only does what he needs to, and it isn't like he's going to be a threat with his feet. And I think that if they add in B.J. Daniels into this system, I think that it'll be really interesting to me to see how BJ would transform this offense, and it would open some things up for these wide receivers and these running backs because they've got a key on him with his running ability, but he just hasn't got a shot. And I don't know if Zorn will give him a shot or not. I know some people have been calling for Silvers to be benched and this and that, and I don't know if he necessarily needs to be benched, but they need to do something to get this offense some dynamic play because that's not really been happening. And I think that the defense has been okay. Last week they with the Renegades in that they had a really. They've got a hot Renegades team coming in, and they played fairly decent. They had their team in that game, for pretty much most of the game. It wasn't until the fourth quarter when really it was, the game was kind of out of their reach, so to say. But so when I look at them and I look at it, it really falls on the offense and how they're going to get that offense to become dynamic and really become a threat down the field. And I think that there's a lot of. Like I said, there's a lot of things that can contribute to that, but we'll see how they go ahead and they take that with it. Now let's go ahead and let's move on here, and let's look at this BattleHawks team. This BattleHawks team is arguably could be the best team in the right now. Now, granted, they had that tough loss there to Houston, which was a great game. It was a fantastic game. They have. They've got Tamau, and he has just been playing. The guy's been playing fantastic. Last week he didn't have to do a whole lot. Listen, a lot of teams are running to open up the pass. That is not this BattleHawks team. This BattleHawks team is going to run the ball and then pass, and a lot of it has to start with Tamau and Teamu, if he goes and he takes this and really continues to kind of run the offense like he has, that RPO that he does, and getting these running backs involved, I think is going to be fantastic. We're still looking for our first 100-yard rusher here, and I think that Jones, if he's healthy, he can break that threshold. He had 95 last week, and he still was dealing with some ailments, and it looks like he's still kind of nursing some of that to where if he can get that going this week, I really see him taking it to the next level. And Christine Michael actually stepped up this past week to where this offense, rushing attack, I think that they're going to be back doing what they do. They're going to be, pounding it there. And then when you least expect it, Teamu, he's going to come in and he is going to, throw the ball. And he's going to connect with these wide receivers. And the cool thing is that he's been really kind of starting to get into some rhythm with some of these guys. And we're starting to see some of the dynamic play from these guys like, Pearsonell and Washington. Those guys have starting to get into the offense. You're starting to see them. Their dynamic play and how they are. And so this is an offense that can really click and really move. And so as we're looking at this game, and we're looking at it at 11.5 points is what we've got the spread now the BattleHawks are giving. And, as we kind of look at it and break it all down, for me, it goes back to the playmakers side of things. I just don't feel like with Brandon Silvers, the way he's been playing, and all of those pieces in place, that Seattle can keep up with the playmakers for the BattleHawks. Add in that electric crowd, which I know you guys are going to be there in St. Louis, and I got a feeling that this game is going to be another big game for the BattleHawks, and we're going to be looking at the BattleHawks next week as just continuing to be a juggernaut, to where I'm going to go ahead and give up the 11.5 points on this game. I like St. Louis in this spot, especially against this Seattle team. I think that Seattle's defense can kind of stick around, but I think that St. Louis has a decent defense and probably a better defense than Seattle has. And I think that in the end, it's just going to show out that the BattleHawks are definitely a better team, and it's going to show. And I think that they're definitely going to win by more than 11.5 points. So give me those BattleHawks. And so, yeah, guys, those are my picks for this week on Saturday's game. Be tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit up Sunday's game, so you'll see those be posted here soon as well. And listen, we're going to have another crazy 2 days of football. And last week I said we were going to have some shockers. That's why you always got to be watching it. The XFL, not only for the play on the field, but just some of the craziness. Last week, New York fell apart, and that was it was must-see TV. I couldn't pull my eyes away. I mean, that's what it was. So if you haven't turned in yet and you're watching this video, you need to tune in to these XFL games. They're fun. They're fast-paced. And they just give you a whole bunch of stuff that are just a joy to watch. So, listen, I know I've been dragging things on here, so that's pretty much it for this video. Those are my picks. Hopefully you liked them. I'd love to hear down in the comment section what your thoughts are on all those picks and who you got for this Saturday's game. All right, guys, I know that you're busy. I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. You have a good night.